Vacation on Hell's Garden. The stellar cartographer screamed through the atmosphere of Kepler 442c with all the grace of a burning brick. Emergency, klaxons wailed as Chief Survey Officer Zara fought the failing controls, her knuckles white against the command console. Hull breach in sections 4 through 7, shouted Vekhai, the ship's Vrilian navigator, his respiratory slits fluttering with panic. Atmospheric contamination spreading through the lower decks. In the co-pilot's seat, the crystalline form of Nethys 12-7 sparked with distress, her silicon-based matrix flickering between translucent blue and alarming red. Primary life support failing. Emergency reserves at 18% and dropping. Hold on to something solid, Zara called back, yanking hard on the manual thrusters. This is going to be rough. The survey ship hit the surface of the uncharted world with bone-jarring force, skipping twice across what looked like a vast purple meadow before sliding to a grinding halt against a cluster of towering crystalline trees. Steam hissed from ruptured coolant lines, and the acrid smell of burned electronics filled the air. Zara pulled herself upright, running a quick mental inventory. Sore ribs, possible bruised shoulder, but nothing serious. She turned to check on her crew. Vekhai had gone completely gray, never a good sign for a Vrilian. His species turned that particular shade when experiencing terminal fear. "We're all going to die," he whispered, his translator barely picking up the words. "This planet, the preliminary scans, it's a Class 15 deathworld." Nethys' crystalline form had shifted to a deep, pulsing red. Environmental readings are catastrophic. Atmospheric composition: 78% nitrogen, 20% oxygen, 1.9% noble gases, with trace amounts of hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide, and chlorine gas. The oxygen concentration alone would be toxic to my kind over extended exposure. "Wait," Zara said, frowning at her personal scanner. "Did you say 20% oxygen? That's actually not bad. A bit rich, but not bad." Vekhai's breathing slits snapped shut in horror. "The atmospheric pressure is 1.2 standard. The humidity is 87%. There are organic acids in the precipitation. This world is trying to kill everything that lands on it." Zara pulled up the environmental readings on her console, scrolling through the data with growing interest rather than alarm. Gravity's about 1.1 Earth standard, so that's manageable. Temperatures averaging 28 degrees Celsius, that's practically tropical. The acid rain has a pH of about 4.2, which is definitely not great, but it's not like it's battery acid. Not battery acid. Nethys' voice climbed several octaves. "Zara, that precipitation will dissolve our emergency shelter within hours. The very air contains compounds that will corrode our equipment and poison our biological systems. The hull breach has contaminated our water recycling system," Vekhai added, checking his readings with trembling hands. "We have perhaps 6 hours of breathable atmosphere remaining in the sealed sections. After that," he didn't finish the sentence. Zara looked out through the cracked viewport at the alien landscape. The purple grass swayed in the breeze, dotted with what looked like flowers the size of dinner plates in shades of electric blue and violent orange. The crystalline trees stretched up toward a sky that was an unsettling shade of green, their surfaces refracting the light from the system's orange dwarf star into rainbow patterns. In the distance, she could see movement. Something large was grazing among the far tree line. "Well," she said, checking the seals on her emergency kit, "I guess I should go take a look around." Both aliens stared at her in stunned silence. "Take a look around." Vekhai's respiratory slits fluttered in what might have been the Vrilian equivalent of hyperventilation. "Zara, please tell me you're not considering going outside. The environmental readings clearly indicate immediate biological system failure for any unprotected organism," Nethys added. "Even with full protective gear, exposure time should be limited to minutes, not hours. Zara was already pulling on her emergency environmental suit, a lightweight affair designed for short EVAs, not extended planetary exploration. Look, somebody's got to check the hull damage and see if we can patch the breach. We're not getting rescued sitting in here. She sealed the suit and ran a quick systems check. The built-in air supply was good for about 4 hours, and the suit's basic filtration system would handle most atmospheric contaminants. It wasn't exactly heavy-duty gear, but it would do. "I'll be back in a couple hours," she said, heading for the emergency airlock. "Try not to panic while I'm gone." The airlock cycled, and Zara stepped out onto the surface of hell. The first thing she noticed was the smell. Even through her suit's filters, there was a sharp, ozone-like scent that reminded her of thunderstorms back on Earth. The air was thick and humid, and she could feel the weight of it even through her environmental protection. The second thing she noticed was that despite the ominous readings, the planet was strikingly beautiful. The purple grass was soft underfoot, almost springy, and the strange flowers released clouds of bioluminescent pollen when disturbed. The crystalline trees sang in the wind, literally sang, their hollow structures creating haunting musical tones as air passed through them. She walked around to the ship's stern to examine the hull breach. It was bad, a jagged tear about 3 meters long where they'd clipped one of those singing trees during the crash landing. But it was repairable, given the right materials and some time. As she worked, cataloging what they'd need for repairs, the sky darkened ominously. According to her scanner, they were about to experience their first taste of the planet's infamous acid rain. The first drops hissed against her suit with tiny wisps of steam. She held out her hand and watched the raindrops strike her glove, each one leaving a small, barely visible mark on the suit's surface. The pH reading on her scanner confirmed it, definitely acidic, but nowhere near the level that would eat through her gear in minutes. "Huh," she muttered to herself. "It's like a light vinegar solution." The rain intensified, and she found herself standing in what could only be described as a warm, acidic shower. It was oddly refreshing. Back on Earth, she'd grown up in the Pacific Northwest, where rain was a constant companion. This felt similar, just with a bit more bite to it. She made her way back to the ship as the downpour reached its peak, noting that the native life seemed completely unaffected by the precipitation. If anything, the purple grass looked healthier, and several of the electric blue flowers had opened wider to catch more of the rain. When she cycled back through the airlock, both aliens rushed to scan her for contamination. "Impossible," Nethys whispered, running her readings for the third time. "You were exposed to the acid precipitation for 17 minutes. Your suit should be showing significant degradation." Zara pulled off her helmet and ran a hand through her damp hair. "It's really not that bad out there." "Yeah, the rain's got some bite to it, but I've been in worse weather during hurricane season back home." Hurricane season, Vekhai's translator seemed to struggle with the concept. Big storms, lots of wind and rain. Sometimes the power goes out for weeks. She shrugged. "You learn to adapt." She pulled up the scanner data on the main console, studying the atmospheric readings more carefully. "Okay, here's what I'm thinking. The hull breach is fixable, but we're going to need materials. I saw some promising mineral deposits about 1/2 kilometer north, and there's definitely plant life we could use for organic polymers." "Zara," Nethys said carefully, "surely you're not suggesting we venture outside to gather resources. The environmental hazards alone." "I'm not suggesting we do anything," Zara replied. "You two stay here and keep the life support running. I'll handle the outside work." Over the next 3 days, Zara established a routine that her alien crewmates found both inspiring and terrifying. Each morning, she would don her environmental suit and venture out into what they considered a hellscape, returning hours later with materials, samples, and an increasingly detailed knowledge of the local ecosystem. On the fourth day, she made a discovery that changed everything. "The water's actually drinkable," she announced, cycling through the airlock with a sample container. I mean, after basic filtration. The natural springs about 2 kilometers east are fed by underground aquifers that filter out most of the nasty stuff. Vekai's gray skin had returned to its normal blue-green, but he still refused to get within 5 meters of the airlock. "Drinkable, Zara, the mineral content alone would be toxic to both our species." "Right, toxic to you," she said, running the water through her portable analyzer. "But perfectly fine for humans. Actually, it's got a pretty good mineral profile. Kind of like those fancy volcanic spring waters they sell on Luna Station." She took a sip straight from the container. Both aliens recoiled in horror. "The native fruit's not bad either," she continued, pulling several colorful specimens from her collection bag. "These orange ones taste like a cross between mango and citrus. The blue ones are more tart, kind of like cranberries. Native fruit," Nethys' crystalline form flickered through several shades of red. "Zara, you cannot possibly be consuming unanalyzed organic matter from a Class 15 deathworld." "I ran basic toxicology scans," Zara said, taking a bite of one of the orange fruits and savoring the sweet, tangy flavor. "My human digestive system can handle the chemical compounds just fine. Actually, these are pretty nutritious. High in vitamins C and E, decent mineral content, and they've got these interesting antioxidants I've never seen before." By the end of the first week, Zara had established what could generously be called a base camp about 100 meters from the ship. It started as a simple shelter built from woven grass and crystalline tree branches, but quickly evolved into something more sophisticated. She discovered that the purple grass, when properly prepared, could be woven into a remarkably strong and waterproof material. The crystalline trees yielded a resin that hardened into a durable, lightweight composite when mixed with certain local clays. And the electric blue flowers, when dried and ground, produced an excellent insect repellent. "This is insane," Vekai muttered, watching through the ship's external cameras as Zara casually worked in the acid rain, wearing nothing but shorts, a tank top, and a basic breathing mask. "She's been outside for 6 hours in precipitation that would dissolve our skin in minutes." "Look at her vitals," Nethys added, monitoring Zara's biosigns through her suit's medical sensors. "Heart rate normal, blood oxygen excellent, stress hormones actually lower than baseline. If I didn't know better, I'd say she was enjoying herself." And she was. For the first time in months, Zara felt genuinely relaxed. The survey work had been stressful, long hours in cramped ship quarters, navigating bureaucratic red tape, filing endless reports for the Galactic Cartography Commission. This was different. This was problem-solving with her hands, adapting to challenges in real time, making something useful from raw materials. It reminded her of childhood camping trips with her father in the Olympic Mountains, where a sudden storm could turn a pleasant hike into a survival situation. Her dad had taught her to read the land, to find shelter and water, to turn adversity into adventure. "Weather's just weather," he used to say. "Doesn't matter if it's raining or snowing or blowing sideways. You adapt, you overcome, you keep moving forward." The local wildlife, initially wary, had begun to accept her presence. The grazing creatures she'd spotted on the first day turned out to be docile herbivores about the size of earth cattle, with 6 legs and shimmering, scale-like hide that shifted colors based on their mood. They watched her work with what seemed like curiosity, occasionally approaching to investigate her tools or sample her construction materials. On day 10, she encountered her first predator. It was roughly the size of a grizzly bear, with crystalline spines running down its back and claws that could apparently slice through the singing trees like paper. It appeared at the edge of her camp during the evening meal, drawn by the smell of roasted fruit. Zara looked up from her dinner to find two glowing eyes watching her from the tree line. She slowly reached for the emergency flare gun she'd salvaged from the ship. But something in the creature's posture made her pause. It wasn't stalking or preparing to attack. It was curious. "Hey there, big guy," she said softly, keeping her voice calm and non-threatening. "You hungry?" She tossed one of the orange fruits in the creature's direction. It sniffed the offering cautiously, then consumed it in one massive bite. Its crystalline spines shifted from red to a softer blue-green. "Yeah, thought you might like that," Zara murmured, tossing another fruit. "You're probably just looking for an easy meal, aren't you?" Over the next hour, she managed to hand-feed the massive predator 6 fruits, and a handful of the sweet root vegetables she discovered growing wild near the springs. When it finally wandered off, its spines had shifted to a warm golden color that seemed to indicate contentment. From the ship, Vekai and Nethys watched in stunned disbelief. "She just fed it," Vekai whispered. "A Class 15 apex predator. She fed it by hand." The creature's bioreadings suggest a state of relaxation and satisfaction, Nethys reported. Its stress hormones decreased by 40% during the interaction. Somehow, she managed to communicate peaceful intent to an alien predator, using nothing but body language and food offerings. "That's not normal behavior," Vekai said. "Not for any sentient species we know of." "No," Nethys agreed, "it's not." By the 3rd week, Zara's camp had evolved into a thriving settlement. She'd built a main shelter large enough to comfortably house all 3 crew members, complete with separate chambers for different atmospheric requirements. A sophisticated water collection and filtration system provided clean drinking water for everyone. Food storage areas kept the growing supply of preserved fruits and vegetables fresh and organized. She'd even managed to establish a small garden, growing several varieties of edible plants that seemed to thrive in the planet's challenging environment. The secret, she'd discovered, was in the soil composition. The right mix of volcanic minerals and organic compounds created ideal growing conditions, provided you knew how to balance the acidity levels. The local wildlife had accepted her as a permanent fixture in their ecosystem. The grazing animals regularly visited her camp, and she'd learned to identify at least a dozen different species by sight. The crystalline-spined predator, she'd started calling him Bruno, stopped by every few days for fruit and what seemed like casual conversation. Most surprisingly, she'd gained weight. Despite the physical demands of construction and exploration, her body had adapted to the planet's rich environment. The native foods were nutrient-dense. The clean air and regular exercise had improved her cardiovascular health, and the lack of processed foods had cleared up a skin condition she'd been fighting for years. "I've never felt better in my life," she admitted to her crewmates during one of their daily check-ins. "My energy levels are through the roof, I'm sleeping like a baby, and I think I've actually gotten stronger since we crashed." "This is unprecedented," Nethys observed. "No known species has ever thrived on a Class 15 deathworld. Most struggle to survive for hours, even with full life support." "Maybe the classification system needs updating," Zara suggested. "I mean, it's definitely a challenging environment, but deathworld seems a bit dramatic." Vekai's respiratory slits fluttered. "Zara, the atmospheric conditions alone would kill my people within minutes. The acid rain would dissolve Nethys's crystalline matrix. The native predators could tear through our strongest alloys. This planet is the definition of a deathworld. For you guys, maybe," Zara said. "For humans, it's more like an extreme camping trip." On day 18, she made her most significant discovery yet. While exploring a cave system near the mineral deposits, she found evidence of previous visitors, not recent, but definitely technological. The cave walls showed signs of artificial modification, and deeper in the system, she discovered what looked like abandoned equipment. The technology was clearly non-human, with design aesthetics that didn't match any known galactic civilization. But more importantly, whoever had been here had left behind detailed records, star charts, atmospheric analysis, even what appeared to be construction blueprints. "This is incredible," she transmitted back to the ship, her voice echoing in the cavern. "Somebody was here before us. And based on the equipment degradation, I'd say maybe 50 to 100 years ago." "Scavenger expedition," Vekai suggested. "No, this is too organized, too permanent. I think someone tried to establish a colony here, on a Class 15 deathworld." Nethys' voice was incredulous. "That's impossible. No known species has the biological adaptability to establish permanent settlements in such an environment." Zara studied the alien text more carefully, running it through her universal translator. According to these records, they lasted about 2 years before abandoning the site. But look at this. They weren't dying from environmental exposure. They left because of resource depletion and supply line failures. She paused, the implications sinking in. They could survive here. Whatever species this was, they actually managed to live on this planet for 2 years. "That changes everything," Nethys said softly. "If there's another species with environmental adaptability comparable to humans. Or maybe," Zara said, examining more of the equipment, "maybe humans aren't as unique as we thought." The rescue ship arrived on day 21, broadcasting standard emergency protocols as it approached the crash site. Captain Thorne expected to find either corpses or survivors in critical condition, barely clinging to life in whatever emergency shelter they'd managed to construct. What he found instead defied all his experience with deathworld rescues. The stellar cartographer sat in the middle of what could only be described as a thriving settlement. Multiple structures, obviously built from local materials, surrounded the crashed ship in an organized pattern. Gardens lined the pathways between buildings. A complex water management system channeled and filtered the acid rain into storage tanks and irrigation channels. And sitting in the middle of it all, sharing a meal of native fruit with what appeared to be a massive predator, was Survey Officer Zara. "Rescue ship Meridian to crash site," Captain Thorne transmitted, his voice carefully controlled. "Are you in immediate danger? Do you require emergency medical assistance?" Zara looked up at the approaching ship and waved casually. "Hey there, Meridian. Good to see you." "No immediate danger, no medical emergencies. We're doing fine down here." "Understood," Thorne replied, though his tone suggested he understood nothing at all. "Preparing to land and initiate emergency evacuation procedures." "Take your time," Zara said. Bruno here was just finishing his dinner. As if understanding that it was being discussed, the massive predator looked up at the rescue ship, its crystalline spines shifting to a curious orange-yellow color. Then it returned its attention to the fruit Zara had offered, carefully taking the food from her hand with claws that could have shredded steel. Captain Thorne set his ship down in the designated landing area Zara had prepared, complete with landing beacons and wind indicators made from local materials. As he and his medical team disembarked, they found Vekai and Nethys waiting for them, both in excellent health despite their 21-day ordeal. "Captain," Vekai said, his normal blue-green coloration indicating good health and stable emotions, "we need to discuss the reclassification of this planet's threat level." "Reclassification?" Thorne looked around at the settlement, trying to process what he was seeing. "This is a Class 15 deathworld. The environmental conditions alone are perfectly manageable," Nethys interrupted, "provided you're human." They gave Captain Thorne the full tour, from the water filtration system to the food gardens to the comfortable sleeping quarters Zara had constructed. They showed him the detailed environmental data she'd collected, the biological samples she'd cataloged, and the evidence of previous settlement attempts. "The human showed no signs of environmental stress throughout our entire stay," Nethys reported. In fact, her physical condition improved significantly. She gained 12 pounds of muscle mass. Her cardiovascular efficiency increased by 15%, and her immune system showed enhanced function across all measured parameters. She befriended the local predators, Vekai added. They now treat her as part of their social structure. We observed her sharing resources with creatures that could have killed her in seconds. Captain Thorne watched as Zara said goodbye to Bruno, scratching behind what might have been the creature's ears, while it purred like a massive, crystalline cat. This is going to require a complete review of our deathworld classification protocols, he said finally. And probably a significant revision to our understanding of human environmental adaptability. There's more, Zara said, joining them for the final briefing. The previous visitors, I think they might have been human too. The equipment I found, the settlement patterns, even the construction techniques. It all matches human design philosophy. You're suggesting humans have visited this planet before? Thorne asked. I'm suggesting humans might have been out here a lot longer than we thought, Zara replied. And maybe some of us never came back because we found places we liked better than the core worlds. As they prepared for departure, Zara took one last look around her settlement. She'd grown attached to this place, to the daily challenges and the simple satisfaction of building something useful with her own hands. Part of her wanted to stay, to continue exploring, to turn this temporary camp into a permanent home. You know, she said to Captain Thorne, if anyone's ever interested in establishing a research station here, I'd be happy to consult on the project. A research station. Thorne looked around at the hostile alien landscape. On a Class 15 deathworld, Class 7, maybe 8, Zara corrected. And only if you're not human, for us, it's just good camping weather. As the rescue ship lifted off, carrying them back to civilization, Zara pressed her face to the viewport for one last look at the planet below. The purple grasslands stretched to the horizon, dotted with singing trees and colorful flowers. Storm clouds were gathering for the evening's acid rain, and she could see Bruno making his way back to his territory, probably already missing his daily fruit delivery. You'll put in your report that the planet's suitable for human habitation, she asked Captain Thorne. I'll recommend a full environmental survey, he replied. Though I suspect the Galactic Council will have some difficulty believing that humans can thrive in conditions that would kill most known species. Let them send another survey team, Zara said with a smile. I volunteer to lead it. 6 months later, the Galactic Council officially reclassified Kepler 442c from a Class 15 deathworld to a Class 7 extreme environment world, with the notation that human settlement was not only possible, but advisable for certain types of research and resource extraction operations. Zara's report became required reading at the Galactic Environmental Assessment Academy, and her techniques for human adaptation to extreme environments were incorporated into standard survival training for multi-species crews. The planet itself was renamed New Eden by the first permanent settlers who arrived the following year. All human volunteers who had read Zara's reports and decided they were ready for the ultimate camping experience. Bruno, now a local celebrity, continued to greet new arrivals and accept fruit offerings from anyone brave enough to hand-feed a Class 15 apex predator. The other predators learned to follow his example, and within 2 years, the planet had developed a thriving ecotourism industry. As for Zara, she accepted the position of Colonial Development Coordinator for New Eden, splitting her time between establishing new settlements and leading expeditions to other unsurvivable worlds that might benefit from a human perspective. Her final log entry from the original crash site read, "Sometimes the best vacations are the ones you never planned. Highly recommend Kepler 442c for anyone looking to get away from the crowds and reconnect with nature. Just remember to pack extra fruit for the locals. They're friendlier than they look."